The majority of human behavior is dependent or determined by habit. And the majority of our lives are determined by what we do, say, feel, think, and our physical presence, which makes the science of identity, which is the habit of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, the single most important science to study in terms of evaluating, predicting, and creating more sustainable human well-being. The ultimate goal of every human being is to feel sustainably better and avoid feeling chronically worse. So let's look at a little piece of identity. And the first thing is to create a few distinctions. So identity is a habit, but that habit can be conscious or unconscious. Meaning you can have default identities imprinted by cult and parents, or you can have conscious identities. You can be aware of your habits of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. Now, the other very important distinction in identity is between compulsive and free identity. Now, a compulsive identity is a habit of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being that is, you may or may not be aware of it, but you can't change it. For example, the alcoholic, the cocaine addict, the sex addict, the think about the past addict, the worry about my problems addict. All of these addictive identities may or may not be conscious. What do you do? What is your mental state? Who are you? Well, I'm someone who worries. Do you enjoy worrying? No. Is it helping you? No. Can you change it? Can you stop worrying? No, I can't. I compulsively worry. I compulsively fight people who are trying to help me. I compulsively distrust very trustworthy people. I compulsively trust untrustworthy people. And it screws up my life. But I can't stop doing it. I can't stop drinking. I can't stop sexting. I can't stop porning. I'm in an addictive or a compulsive habit, an identity that I can't get out of. So this tells us something very important. If it's conscious or unconscious, if it's an unconscious identity, it tells us that it's given to us from the cult. Because if we chose and carefully built the identity based on data and analysis, then by definition we are conscious of it. If it's an unconscious identity, it is given to us by the cult. This creates a hierarchy because any unconscious identity that has been iterated into a new identity, which is now conscious, is statistically superior. So if you just did exactly what grandma did, and without any thought and feeling, and you're not aware of it, statistically speaking, you've got a highly inefficient identity. There's a story that kind of comes to mind here, and it's the story of the baking dish. And so every Thanksgiving, Brad would visit his girlfriend Mel's grandparents, and the grandparent would always cut off the ends of the ham. They had a nice ham for Thanksgiving. She would always cut off the ends, and Brad wondered, "Why are you doing that? I don't see any reason for this." And she said, "Well, my mother did this. And he talked with the mother, and and my mother did this. And one day he met that mother, and he said, "Why do you cut off the ends of your ham?" And she said, "My baking dish is too small." And so this intergenerational pattern of cutting off this meat to this what was ultimately an arbitrary size, because they each, the younger generations, they had bigger baking dishes. They didn't have to cut off the ends of the ham, but they did it unconsciously because that's what they learned to do by copying their parents unconsciously. They didn't ask the reason, they just did what they were told to do. And as the outer environment shifted and bigger ovens were made and bigger baking, they still operated within this limited framework. So there's a benefit to going towards conscious identity. Now, what compulsive versus free identities speak to is the level of pain that is being medicated by the identity. And typically we're talking about traumatic pain. So trauma is a phenomena where a large mass of energy, could be a truck, could be a divorce, could be a financial calamity, a large pattern of energy threatens the identity of the recipient. You're the one standing there as this large truck is going forward. Your identity is threatened, is shattered. You lose coherence of your pattern. If a truck hits you, you become mangled. If a financial tsunami hits you, it wipes out your financial identity, your habit of spending. You can't spend that way if you don't have any money, and so your identity collapses. And you're in a tremendous amount of pain. You're losing your identity. And this is something very hard for a materialist, rationalist, kind of reductionist to do, because the whole point of the materialistic paradigm is to say that you are your identity. You are what you own. You are what you eat. You are what you buy. You are what you wear. This is who you are. And obviously it's a pretty traumatic experience to lose one's self, having identified completely with the material objects that define that identity, and having conflated identity with self. We now lose the self and feel completely out of control, because there are many things in the world that are bigger than our identity. And if our identity collides with those things, we will lose that identity. Our identity will be shattered. And if we believe we are the identity, then we are shattered. And so it is a tremendously traumatic experience. Now, the traumatic coping mechanism is an identity that forms in the heat of trauma. It is a pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being that forms in the heat of trauma to cope with unbearable and enormous levels of pain, enormous levels of trauma. Now, because it's a pain management identity, it has a role, and its role is to manage pain. And its role is to manage pain in such a way that we can survive, feel secure in that survival, etc. It's to keep us alive. Now, in a psychologically illiterate culture, we do not learn to repair the identity. We don't learn to break it down. In an intelligent, psychologically literate culture, we might have a meeting with our community, with our neighbors, and say, look, I was nearly shot today by this person that was first reaching out to extend their hand to shake my hand. Then as soon as I was reaching out my hand, they took out a gun. They missed me, but I can't function. It's terrifying to shake someone's hand right now. Now, the coping mechanism that I've got, flashbacks, turning away, feeling guilty, eating too much food, I've now developed an identity that's helping me manage this terror, this pain, this panic. And that's working, meaning I'm still alive. I'm not the same person I was before, but this coping mechanism is kind of an unconscious, spur-of-the-moment creation by the psyche to say, will this work? Will this keep you alive at manageable levels of pain and fear? But it's not very well designed. And so let's design a better identity where give me a few seconds, we'll acknowledge the trauma, then we'll shake hands. I'll stop eating potato chips and doing this. I need some reassurance that people are going to be there for me. And one of my greatest fears was who's going to take care of my cat when I'm dead. And so, now I'm viscerally reminded that I could die at any day, and who's going to take care of my cat? I don't have a backup plan for my cat. And so would anyone agree to check on my house, once a week and take care of my cat? And if I'm not there, because the cat's got enough food for, up to a week. Okay, now we've solved the problem of the adaptive compulsive pain management identity. So now I can create now, the pain and fear is down at a level where the adaptive identity doesn't need to hold it. Because one of the things that can happen in traumatic events is you can collapse. You can literally collapse under the weight of fear, pain, terror, confusion, insanity, dissociation, dysfunction, failure that comes with trauma. You can collapse. And the compulsive reactive identity, its job is to jack up and take some of the weight off of your fear, your anxiety, your outer reality, to take some of the weight off so that you can function, so that you can have a few hours of maneuvering, on the other side of that addictive behavior. And then the compulsion comes in again because the dread of that feeling comes on, and it's like, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to feel that. And so the compulsion, the addiction comes in and holds that weight. So you can take systematic steps to reduce the pain and fear in your life, if you are capable of, because this is the science of conscious identity. If you can develop a new identity, a new pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being that protects who you are, your identity, from some of that shock, from some of that pain, number one, that reduces the pain and fear, number three, that makes things better in the future. And number four is more intelligent than the coping strategy, the default identity. If you can do that, you can now create a new identity that works so much better. It's now conscious and it is less compulsive, because one of the troubles with a compulsive identity is it doesn't usually solve the underlying pain. That may or may not pass with time, just the course of time, but it usually doesn't solve the underlying pain. What it does is it distracts the consciousness from an equation that is painful, frightening, and too complicated to solve. I don't know how to do it. I don't have any confidence to solve this equation. And so let's watch porn. Let's go out running. Let's sweep every room in the house frantically, and then we'll clean all the ceilings and let's paint the house. Let's do something to distract from this crisis. And so this movement towards consciousness and intelligence is also a movement towards healing, reintegration, restoring security and survival, etc. Move towards what makes you more in control. Move towards what makes you more likely to survive, more secure in your survival, deepening your sense of love and belonging. These are your human needs. As you do that, your pain and fear will go down. It may take a day, a month, a year, 5 years. As you do that, your pain will go down. And you can move from the compulsive identity to the free identity, where you can then continue to iterate it. Now, the other thing that's useful to know about identities, particularly unconscious compulsive identities, is they are tools. They are like a screwdriver and a hammer and a wrench. So each identity is and was formed for a purpose. And a purpose that in some way, when it was formed, either unconsciously by copying the parent or consciously, either compulsively or freely, when it was formed initially, it provided a service. The screwdriver is very useful for unscrewing and tightening screws. The wrench is very useful for tightening and untightening bolts. The hammer is very useful for hammering nails. But if you try to hammer a bolt, it doesn't come off, and the bolt can get mangled up so that even a wrench can't take it off. If you hammer a screw, it may go in, stripping the wood, but it won't come out. If you hammer it 100,000 times, the screw is not going to come back out again. It's just going to get beat up. And this is one of the problems with the paradigm of identifying with the identity. Identity, the pattern of me. When there's no gap between the I and the pattern of behavior the I engages in, then you're stuck because you can't change you. It wouldn't be me. I am an alcoholic. And so if I stopped drinking, I wouldn't be me. And I don't want to lose me. I don't want to lose myself because I've conflated self with habit, with this identity. There's no gap between me and my identity. And in fact, there is a gap in the function of mythology and healthier religions throughout history, healthy traditions of mysticism and shamanism and the like. There is a gap between the pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, and doing and the self. And that gap is the witness. The witness is particularly focused on in Buddhism, but it is acknowledged throughout. It's acknowledged in therapy and psychotherapy. It's acknowledged in psychedelics. You're having an experience and you watch your thoughts. You realize, oh, those are my thoughts, but I am the one watching the thoughts. Those are my actions, but I am the one watching those actions occur. Those are my things, but I'm the one watching those things. I'm the one buying or selling those things. I am not my thoughts, my actions, my things. I am the one who watches. I am not my identity. I am the one who witnesses. These are my habits of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And I am the one who witnesses the consequences. This is what happens when I think this and consequently feel that and consequently make this decision and consequently take this action and consequently buy these things and eat these things. I watch the consequences. I'm the one who watches the habit, and I'm the one who watches the consequences of the habit. And here's what's really important. I am the one who edits the habit. Now that witness, cannot edit a compulsive identity until the pain has been alleviated. You may need to ask for help. Trauma is a domain where you need help because you've been shattered by an energy pattern that is bigger than you, or it wouldn't have shattered you. We're dealing with the law of mass. The bigger object shatters, reacts to the smaller object. So in that sense, the law of mass dictates that the bigger object will affect the smaller object more than the smaller object will affect the bigger object. So I need help. I need mass. I need support in my reality from someone, from something bigger than myself. So we have the law of mass. I need help. I need to reduce the pain. I need to reduce the trauma. I need to increase the safety so that the load of pain, fear, and trauma is taken off the reactive identity, the coping mechanism, the traumatic survival identity. That identity that was born in a moment out of the unconscious creativity and survival drive of the psyche needs to be replaced with a conscious identity that does all the things the unconscious identity and compulsive identity did, but does it better and with less side effects. And this is really important because when there's no space, well, first of all reactive compulsive identities are low intelligence. They often consume large amounts of energy. They create relatively little sustainable well-being. For example, if your biggest panic is you cannot face the grief of the loss of your child, and so your adaptive identity comes in and says, okay, I've got it, we've got the plan here. Drink a pint of vodka, and you will not feel the loss of your child. It's the only way I know. I watch Dad do it. Here, drink the vodka. You drink the vodka, and it's like, oh, thank heavens, I have a moment of peace here. Then you wake up and your car's wrecked and you've got new problems. And so it's not a very sophisticated coping mechanism, but it's the best you've got. You've always using the best you have available within your frame of probability. But if you're using a screwdriver, the drinking identity to do what? Well, you can do certain things with the drinking identity. You can forget your feelings. You can have anonymous sex. You can perhaps laugh and get in touch with certain things. You can numb out and feel peace that you're not going to be confronted with your inner critic while you're drinking. Then you'll be extra confronted with your inner critic after you were drinking. But you can drink again, and then your inner critic will go away again. And you can just keep drinking and escape your inner critic and numb the feelings. And so, there's a cycle here, but it's a limited identity. The screwdriver can turn screws in and out, but it cannot hammer very well. It certainly is not a good wrench. And so if you understand that you are the one who witnesses, who creates the identity. Now, in a materialist cult such as our own, in a highly traumatic cult, we may have never met that one who watches, that one who chooses, that one who edits the film. We may have never met them. And this is the purpose of a transcendent meditation, of a chanting, dancing ritual, of a fasting ritual of, 24 hours in the cold or in the heat, is to find that one who watches. And so that we might look at a 10x spirituality, 10xspirituality.org or .com, 10x beliefs. We might look at a variety of different ways to have that transcendent experience, to meet the self, to meet the one who watches life but is bigger than life. The one who watches is always bigger than what is watched. And this is in many ways the healing of trauma, because when the identity shatters, it's gone, it's lost. When the identity is shattered, if you are that identity, you are shattered. But if you are the one who watches the identity that is shattered, you are not shattered. You are the one who watches the part that is shattered. There's another dimension, another layer. And that provides resilience, that provides security, that provides support that people who have not met their self, the witness, do not have. It provides a sense of center. And this is incredibly valuable. So, when we understand that identities are like tools, and we understand that reality needs different tools in different situations to create sustainable fun, to create sustainable well-being. In this situation, I need to be assertive or I'll get mowed over. So I need an assertive tool that says, no, you're not getting in and harassing my kids. Get the hell out of here. I'm not interested in telemarketers. I'm not interested in my child being guilt-tripped into Jehovah's Witnesses. Get the hell out. So you have an assertive identity. You also have a receptive identity. See, but the thing is, when you're unconscious and when you're compulsive, the identity, the toolbox is not nicely filled out and carefully organized. I needed an assertive identity in order to survive, so I've got an assertive identity, but I never needed a receptivity identity. I never needed a gracious, vulnerable, receptive identity. And I don't have one. It's not in my toolbox. So you offer me a gift, and I look around. Should I get the screwdriver, the hammer, the wrench? Which one is good for gifts? I don't have an identity that's good for gifts. So I'm going to discourage you from giving me any more gifts. What are you thinking? I didn't like this. Go, get out. This isn't a good time. Go to hell. And now you've got rid of them. And hopefully you've trained them not to give you any gifts because you don't have a receptive identity to receive the gifts. And so you hit them with a hammer. You tried to bolt them with a wrench. You poked them with a screwdriver. None of those worked very well for receiving gifts, so off they went. No more gifts for you. What a relief. I don't know what to do with these situations. I've got pliers, I've got a hammer, I've got a screwdriver. That's what I've got. And this is the limitation of a cult that is psychologically illiterate, that does not teach and practice the art, the science of identity, the art, the science of trauma and traumatic prevention and repair, and the connection and initiation into the transcendent self, the one who watches, the one who could say, well, you could create this identity. You could have this habit of thinking, feeling, speaking, and doing, where you say this and do this and try it out. See if it works. Next time someone wants to give you a gift, try saying thank you. Try smiling. Try saying, oh, why did you get this for me? Oh, that's very interesting. Try looking at how it could enhance. What is your gift-receiving identity? And does your identity fit with the giver? What is the giver's identity? You see, maybe the person giving you the gift does not have a very good identity for giving it. They're, in other words, trying to hammer a screwdriver with a hammer because they don't have any nails. They don't have a gift-giving identity. Because what does a good gift-giving identity look like? Well, first of all, you might want to scout out and say, well, do you like to receive gifts, or do you like to be surprised? How do you like to receive gifts? Do you feel like gifts make you a weak person? Is that one of your identities, that you have this thought that says, if someone gives me a gift, I'm less than? Do you have a thought that says, now you owe me? So tell me all about how your design is in there. What's your identity for giving and receiving gifts? And then, would you like to be included? Does it make you very upset if someone spends more than $300 on a gift for you because now you owe them big time and you don't want to and get that gift? So you might learn a little bit about the identity the other person has on the other side to receive your gift. You might learn a little bit about it. And then you might choreograph your gift to fit into a way that will hopefully make them happy within their limited identity. Or if you're dealing with an intelligent, awake person, you might choreograph a giving and receiving identity together. You might say, you know what, I think it would be more fun if I let go of this obligation thing here. Can you let go of it, and can I let go? Let's design an identity. An identity that is masculine, that gives, an identity that is feminine, that receives, an identity that is masculine, that talks, an identity that's feminine, that listens, an identity. And let's trade identities. I'll give to you in this way, you give to me in that way. And let's see how it is. Let's create an identity. Let's create a vocabulary, a mechanism, where this finger fits beautifully in here. I like that. Doesn't work. Don't like that. I like that. We've got a receptive identity and an initiatory identity, and they fit pretty tight, pretty nice. I like it. It's a good thing. We have a hand-holding identity. I do like this. You do like this. I like it. Is it too much pressure? Don't walk so fast. You're pulling me. That's it. That's it. That's how we have our identities connecting. So when you have a conscious, non-compulsive identity, now we're talking about a non-shame-based identity, a non-traumatized identity, you can now create magic. You have an exponential return on investment available to you, with a feedback loop which can constantly iterate to make things better, 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 and better. You're now in an intelligent dynamic, an intelligent feedback loop. They're becoming conscious of their identity and you're working with it. You're becoming conscious of your identity and you're working with it. It's an intelligent dynamic. And it works. It's magnificent. The science of identity is among the most profound scientists or sciences that the typical person will go cradle to grave without learning anything about. It radically shifts the future of each individual, of a culture, of a species. And thanks for joining me in a small step in this direction.